I have 15 minutes, 15, before I have to get going, so I'm gonna try to make this as short and sweet and straight to the point as possible. So I'm down in my office and someone else wants to know, they say, here's another question for you. No, that's the wrong question. Let me go back. They say, here's the right question. I would love to learn more about why fat can cause your blood sugars to stay elevated. So there are a plethora of different things that can impact your blood sugars, and food is just one of them. So when we look at diet specifically, we are looking at sugar as well as fat. There's also genetics. There is epigenetics. Don't ask me about that topic because I don't know much about it. The next thing is the environment that you live in, which can have an impact on epigenetics. And then finally, there is physical activity or the lack thereof. You go to the doctor and you are diagnosed with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. The next thing that the doctor will tell you is, if you are overweight or obese, is I need you to lose a little weight. And I know that sounds very discouraging. It sounds very disheartening, but there is a method to your doctor's madness. And I want to share with you what is going on in your body. So if you see me turning here, I'm looking at my computer and I'm definitely going to share the image with you. So let's first start looking at what happens inside your body when you are consuming too much sugar, especially sugar or carbohydrates, I should say, that do not have a lot of fiber in it. So this case in point, I have a donut. So when you eat this donut, the donut breaks down into these purple circles, and these purple circles, I want you to think of them as sugar. So what happens is the body senses like, hey, this person ate something, and your pancreas, which is what releases insulin to help control your blood sugars, or better manage your blood sugars, I should say, your pancreas goes into action. And your pancreas releases a hormone by the name of insulin. So I want you to think of insulin as a key that unlocks the cell, and it allows the sugar from the foods that you consume to enter the cell and to be utilized for energy. So those blue diamonds are insulin. So what happens is the insulin is a key, it unlocks the cell, and the purple circles or the sugar enter into the cell to be utilized for energy. But what happens is, let's say that we consume too much donuts or too much simple sugars, too much sugary foods. Over time, there is a consequence to this. So initially, the muscles as well as the liver, they store extra sugar in the short term. And in the long term, anything consumed in excess will turn to fat. And this is where you get these yellow circles from. Once these fat cells are filled and they multiply and they divide, what happens is then the extra fat starts to deposit around the peripheral tissue or other parts of your body. And you may see the scale going up, indicating to you that, hey, you are gaining weight. And what happens because of this, a lot of inflammation occurs, which can lead to insulin resistance. And then when you eat something that is very high in sugar, the process starts over again, causing a lot of inflammation. That is the deal on sugar. But what this person wanted to know was specifically fat. So fat functions in a very similar way. So again, I'm looking at my slide and you will also see it on the screen. So when you eat foods that are high in fat and you continue to overconsume these foods that are high in fat, they are stored in fat cells, or adipocytes as we like to call them in the sciencey world. So when fat cells accumulate and they are stored in the adipocytes, this is long-term storage. And short-term storage, the fat that we consume, some of it is stored in the muscle as well as the liver. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, you are eating a lot of fried foods, you are eating a lot of fatty foods. what happens is this can cause a dysfunction. It's called adipocyte dysfunction. Remember, adipocyte simply means a fat cell. And because we get this adipocyte dysfunction, it can result in a lot of inflammation in the body. And we have to remember that diabetes is an inflammatory condition. And because there's a lot of inflammation in the body, this can lead to insulin resistance. So if we continue to consume foods that are very, very high in saturated fat, then this can impact your blood sugars. So I want you to remember, consuming foods that are very high in simple sugars and consuming foods very high in saturated fat can have a negative impact overall on your specific blood sugar levels. It can cause you to gain that extra weight, which can cause a lot of inflammation and dysfunction in your body and cause your blood sugars to be stubbornly elevated. There are a lot of people, or some people in the past that I have met with, and they have been on the keto diet, but they have been on a very high fat keto diet. And this is exactly what I'm seeing going on. There was someone that came to me and their blood sugars were elevated, and when I started figuring out what they were eating, I was like, you know, I understand that you are on the keto diet, but your diet is also very high in fat, which can cause that adipocyte dysfunction, results in inflammation, and cause your blood sugars to be stubbornly elevated. So this is how a high sugar and a high fat diet can impact your overall blood sugars. And that's why when you go to the doctor, as annoying as it may be for some people, your doctor may tell you, hey, to lose that weight, to decrease the size of those fat cells, because once our body forms a new fat cell, that fat cell does not go away. It just gets larger and it gets smaller. But your doctor may tell you to go ahead and decrease your weight to help with that inflammation. That will help with that insulin resistance. That will cause your blood sugar levels to go down. So I tried to make this as clear, as simple, as straightforward as possible. And another thing I should say as well, this is only one or two, I should say, looking at sugar and also looking at fat. This is just two of the ways that insulin resistance can occur. When we look at gut health is another thing. Consuming too much fried foods, too much greasy foods, too much sugary foods can cause the good bacteria in your gut to not flourish, and it causes the bad bacteria to grow. And what happens with that, the bad bacteria can produce metabolites that can cause your blood sugars to be elevated. So again, this is just a quick overview, nitty gritty, straight to the point. But let me say this, I'm a dietitian, but I'm not your dietitian. If you do have blood sugar problems, if you do have a diagnosis of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, I want to highly encourage you to make an appointment to see a registered dietitian nutritionist. Please do not get your information off of social media. Don't do that. There may be some gems that you're finding, but at the same time, everybody's body is completely different. What may work for you is not necessarily going to work for someone else. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Do not hesitate to ask your questions, like, subscribe, and share this video. Bye-bye.